The letter trembled in my hands as I read the familiar handwriting, the same precise cursive that had once marked up my report cards with criticisms, the same hand that had written countless notes reminding me to be more ladylike, more proper, more like the daughter she wanted. My name is Stephanie, and after 5 years of silence, my mother was asking for help. Everything okay? Taya poked her head into my office, her expression shifting from cheerful to concerned when she saw my face. You look like you've seen a ghost. Worse, it's from my mother. I held up the envelope, still pristine white despite traveling across the city. Clara Horton never did anything messily, not even desperate pleas for assistance. The same mother who told you you'd end up homeless when you left Francisco? Taya stepped fully into the office, closing the door behind her. The sounds of our busy fashion house became muffled, designers chattering about the upcoming collection, the rhythmic hum of sewing machines, phones ringing with potential buyers. The very same. I stood up, needing to move. The wall-to-wall windows of my office showcased the city I'd made my own, far from the suffocating suburban existence my mother had planned for me. She's lost everything, Taya. The investment Ronald convinced her to make, it went bad, really bad. Your golden boy brother screwed up. Shock horror. Taya perched on my desk, her bright yellow dress a stark contrast to my minimalist office decor. What exactly does she want? A job. I laughed, but it came out hollow. Can you believe it? The woman who told me fashion was a hobby for silly girls now wants to work in my little shop. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Brooks, Corbin needs your approval on the sustainable fabric samples for next season. Tell him I'll be there in 5, Julie. I pressed the button, then turned back to Taya. Remember that dinner? The last one before I left Francisco? How could I forget? You showed up at my apartment at midnight with mascara all over your face. The memory hit hard, my mother's voice cutting across the dining room table. A wife's place is supporting her husband, Stephanie. This business nonsense is just your way of avoiding responsibility. Francisco had sat there, silent as always, torn between supporting my dreams and agreeing with my mother. His silence had said everything. She's desperate now, I said, smoothing the letter on my desk. Ronald's investment scheme took everything, her savings, the house equity, even Dad's life insurance money. And now she needs her silly, irresponsible daughter to save her. Taya's voice dripped with sarcasm. The same daughter who built a 7-figure company from scratch while maintaining ethical production standards. The intercom buzzed again. Sorry to interrupt, but Corbin is getting anxious about those samples. Duty calls. I straightened my jacket, vintage Chanel, bought with my first real profit, and headed for the door. What would you do, Taya? Me? She hopped off the desk, following me out. I'd make her grovel, but then again, I'm petty like that. We walked through the main workspace, past rows of designers sketching, seamstresses working on prototypes, and marketing team members huddled around computer screens. My little shop employed over 50 people now, all earning living wages with full benefits. Morning, Stephanie. Corbin waved from his station, surrounded by fabric swatches. These just came in from the organic cotton supplier in India. The quality is amazing, but the price point? Hold that thought, I said, spotting a familiar figure through the glass entrance doors. My heart stopped. There stood Clara Horton, my mother, looking smaller than I remembered in her outdated suit, clutching her prized Hermes handbag, probably the last valuable thing she owned. Our eyes met through the glass, and for a moment I was 16 again, desperate for her approval. Is that? Taya whispered. She didn't wait for me to respond to the letter. I straightened my spine, feeling the weight of every eye in the office on me. Typical. Want me to tell security to escort her out? I watched my mother shift uncomfortably in the reception area, her perfect posture finally showing cracks. The woman who had controlled every aspect of my life until I broke free now stood in my domain, powerless. No, I said, a plan forming in my mind. Have Julie show her to the small conference room. Tell her I'll be there in an hour. An hour? That's a bit cruel, isn't it? Taya's smile suggested she approved nonetheless. Consider it her first lesson in working for someone else. I turned toward Corbin and his fabric samples, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Sometimes karma takes its time, but it always arrives eventually. The click of my heels against the polished concrete floor echoed with purpose. Let her wait. Let her feel what it was like to be at someone else's mercy for once. After all, she had taught me everything I knew about power, even if she never meant for me to use those lessons this way. The fabric swatches blurred before my eyes as memories of that night 5 years ago flooded back. I'd rehearsed the conversation with Francisco 100 times, but nothing could have prepared me for how it actually went down. I can't do this anymore, I told him, standing in our perfectly decorated living room that felt more like a museum than a home. I'm suffocating here. Francisco looked up from his laptop, his expression caught between confusion and concern. What are you talking about, mi amor? Everything is perfect. Your mother just told me about this amazing country club membership she's arranged for us. Perfect? I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make him flinch. I'm running a growing business from our guest room because you won't let me lease an office space. Mom's planning our social calendar like I'm still 16. When was the last time anyone asked what I wanted? The business, he sighed, closing his laptop. Stephanie, it's a hobby. A nice one, sure, but you don't need to work. I make more than enough. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. My hobby made $30,000 last month. Did you know that? No, because you never asked. Neither did Mom when she scheduled those tennis lessons during my supplier meetings. The memory shifted to later that same night, at my parents' house. Mom had insisted on an emergency family dinner when Francisco called her about our fight. Ronald was there too, already successful in his investment firm, Mom's pride and joy. You're being ridiculous, Mom had said, cutting her chicken into precise pieces. Francisco is a wonderful husband. He supports your little projects. Projects? I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I have contracts with 3 major retailers. I'm employing 12 people. How is that a project? Sit down, Ronald had snapped. You're embarrassing yourself. No, I'm done being the family embarrassment. I grabbed my purse. I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not. I'm done with all of it. If you walk out that door, Mom's voice could have frozen hell itself. Don't expect any support when this falls apart. A knock on my office door yanked me back to the present. Ellis, my financial advisor, stood there with a concerned look. Stephanie, the quarterly reports just came in. You might want to see this. I blinked, forcing myself back to the present. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. He grinned, laying a folder on my desk. We're up 40% from last quarter. The eco-friendly line is exploding, and that expose you did on fast fashion sweatshops? It's driving customers to us in droves. I flipped through the numbers, a smile spreading across my face. Have you seen the Community Impact Report? That's the best part. Ellis pulled out another document. Your initiative to hire local seamstresses and provide training? It's transformed the neighborhood. But his expression darkened. There's something else you should know. What? Remember that abandoned factory complex we were looking at for expansion? Turns out Ronald's firm bought it last week. They're planning to flip it into luxury condos. My stomach dropped. The complex had been perfect for our needs. Central location, plenty of space for production and training facilities. More importantly, It would have provided jobs in an area that desperately needed them. Of course he did. I stood up, pacing. He probably knew we were interested. This has his pettiness written all over it. There's more. Ellis shifted uncomfortably. The local news is running a story tonight about displacement in the neighborhood. They're interviewing families being priced out by development projects exactly like this one. The intercom buzzed. Stephanie, your mother's asking if you'll be much longer. She's been waiting for almost 2 hours now. I pressed the button. Tell her I'll be right there. Looking at Ellis, I added, send me everything you have on that factory deal, every detail. Walking toward the conference room, I caught my reflection in the glass walls. Gone was the uncertain woman who'd fled her family 5 years ago. In her place stood someone who'd built something real, something that mattered. I pushed open the conference room door. Mom sat there, back straight as ever, but her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. Sorry to keep you waiting, I said, not sorry at all. I was just reviewing our quarterly reports. We're up 40%. She flinched slightly at the deliberate emphasis on our success. Stephanie, before you say anything else, I cut her off, I should mention we're planning a major expansion. The community needs it. Funny thing though, Ronald just bought the building we wanted. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Mom's face paled. In that moment, I knew. She'd known about Ronald's plan all along. Some things never changed, but I had changed. And this time, I was playing by my own rules. I had no idea about Ronald's plans, Mom said, but the slight tremor in her voice betrayed her. After years of listening to her perfectly crafted lies, I'd become fluent in her tells. Really? Just like you had no idea about the investment scheme that cost you everything? I settled into the chair across from her, noting how her designer outfit, once pristine, now showed subtle signs of wear. Before she could respond, Taya burst into the conference room. Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. The local news crew is downstairs. They're doing that story about the factory complex, and they're asking for comments. Mom's head snapped up. What factory complex? The one Ronald just bought, I said, standing. The one that's going to displace 30 families when he turns it into luxury condos. Excuse me, Mom. Duty calls. Wait. She grabbed my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Let me help. I know how Ronald thinks, how he operates. I can. Like you helped before? I pulled away. By telling me I was throwing my life away? That I'd never amount to anything without a husband? Taya cleared her throat. The reporters aren't going away, Steph. Fine. I straightened my jacket. Mom, stay here. Taya, get Corbin to pull the community impact reports. And someone find Ellis. I need those property documents. The lobby was chaos. 3 news cameras pointed at our glass entrance, reporters clutching microphones like weapons. Through the doors, I could see signs being held up by local residents. Stop the displacement and people over profit. Ms. Brooks, a reporter shoved a microphone toward me as I stepped outside. What's your response to Ronald Horton's development plans? My response? I looked directly into the nearest camera. Horton Investment Firm's plan to convert the Marshall Street factory into luxury condos is exactly the kind of short-sighted development that's destroying our community. That's why my company is offering an alternative. The crowd quieted. Even the protesters lowered their signs. We're prepared to make a counteroffer, I continued, my heart pounding but my voice steady. One that will keep jobs in the neighborhood and families in their homes. Our plan includes a state-of-the-art production facility and training center, providing employment opportunities for local residents. But the property's already been sold, another reporter called out. The sale isn't final. Ellis appeared at my side, holding up a folder. We've uncovered some interesting details about the purchase agreement, details that might interest the city zoning board. Back inside, Corbin was waiting with a tablet. The community impact numbers are ready, and you might want to see this. Social media's blowing up. Save Marshall Street is trending locally. Perfect. I turned to head back to my office but stopped short. Mom stood in the hallway, watching everything unfold with wide eyes. This is what you built? Her voice was barely above a whisper. All of this? No, Mother. I built more than this. I built something that matters. I gestured to the crowd outside. Those people out there, they matter. Their lives matter. Unlike Ronald, I'm not in this just to make money. Ronald, she shook her head. He said the investment was guaranteed, that we couldn't lose. And you believed him because he's your perfect son. The words came out sharper than I intended. Just like you believed I was ruining my life by choosing this over being Francisco's trophy wife. Ms. Brooks? Julie appeared, tablet in hand. Ronald Horton is on line 1. He sounds angry. Put him through to my office. I turned to Mom. You wanted to help? Here's your chance. Show me you mean it. In my office, I put the call on speaker. Ronald's voice filled the room tight with rage. What the hell do you think you're doing, Stephanie? Hello to you too, brother dear. Saw the news yet? This is business. You can't just... Can't what? I interrupted. Can't stop you from destroying people's lives? Can't protect my community? Or can't beat you at your own game? Ronald, Mom's voice cut through the tension. What did you do with my money? Silence crackled over the speaker. Mom? Ronald's voice lost its edge. What are you doing there? Answer the question. Her tone was one I'd heard countless times growing up, the one that demanded absolute truth. What happened to my investment? As Ronald stammered through excuses, I watched my mother's face change. For the first time in my life, I saw her really seeing Ronald for who he was, seeing me for who I'd become, and maybe, just maybe, seeing herself for who she needed to be. The game wasn't over, but the rules had definitely changed. Your first day starts now, I told Mom the next morning, handing her an employee badge. Corbin will show you the ropes in the production department. She stared at the badge like it might bite her. Production? But I thought, perhaps something in management? You need to learn the business from the ground up. I gestured to Corbin, who approached with his characteristic enthusiasm. Everyone here starts at the beginning. Even Stephanie did, Corbin added cheerfully. Come on, I'll show you how to log quality control data for our incoming materials. As they walked away, I heard Mom's stilted voice. I've never actually used a computer for work. You're enjoying this way too much, Taya said, appearing at my elbow with coffee. Though I have to admit, watching Clara Horton learn to use a spreadsheet might be worth the price of admission. Speaking of prices, Ellis rushed over, waving a document. Ronald's firm just lowered their asking price for the factory. They're getting nervous about the media coverage. Good. I took a sip of coffee. Keep pushing. I want... A crash from the production floor interrupted me. Mom stood frozen beside an overturned box of fabric samples, her face flushed with embarrassment as younger employees rushed to help. I'm so sorry, she stammered. I didn't realize... It happens, Corbin assured her, already organizing the cleanup. You should have seen Juliet's first day. She managed to jam the industrial printer so badly we had to call in specialists. Really? Mom looked at Juliet, who nodded with a sympathetic smile. Took me 3 weeks to live that down, Juliet laughed. But now I run the printer training sessions. I watched the interaction with mixed emotions. Part of me wanted Mom to struggle, to feel the uncertainty I'd felt when I started. But seeing her accept help from people she would have previously looked down on, it was something. Stephanie? Julie's voice crackled over the intercom. Francisco's here to see you. My coffee cup froze halfway to my mouth. What? Your ex-husband's in reception. He says it's about Ronald. Of course it was. Francisco had always been Ronald's favorite golf buddy, even after our divorce. I squared my shoulders and headed for reception. He stood there in his perfect suit, looking exactly as I remembered. Stephanie, you look successful. What do you want, Francisco? Ronald sent me to negotiate. He glanced around the office. Privately? Anything you have to say, you can say here. I crossed my arms. My team should hear this. Fine. He straightened his tie. Ronald's willing to sell you the factory at cost, no markup. He just wants you to stop the media campaign. At cost? I laughed. After what he did to Mom's savings? No. He'll sell at a loss, and he'll publicly apologize to the families he tried to displace. That's not reasonable. Neither was stealing my mother's retirement fund. Mom's voice cut in. She stood behind me, still clutching a handful of fabric swatches. Tell my son I want the truth, Francisco. All of it. Or the next news story won't be about the factory. It'll be about investment fraud. Francisco's face paled. Clara, you don't understand. I understand perfectly now. Mom stepped forward, her voice gaining strength. I understand that I backed the wrong child. I understand that while Ronald was playing with people's lives, Stephanie was building something real. She turned to me. The organic cotton supplier called. They're offering a 10% discount if we increase our order. I couldn't help smiling. Did you log it in the system? Corbin showed me how. She looked back at Francisco. Tell Ronald he has until tomorrow to make a real offer. After that, we go public with everything. Francisco looked between us, clearly thrown by this united front. I'll relay the message. After he left, Mom sagged slightly. Did I do that right? The supplier call really did come in, and I thought, you did great. I touched her arm briefly. Come on, I'll show you how to document supplier negotiations properly. Stephanie? Her voice was quiet. I know it doesn't make up for everything, but I'm starting to understand why you chose this life. It matters. It does. I led her back to the production floor. And speaking of things that matter, those samples aren't going to sort themselves. She actually laughed. A real laugh, not her usual polite society chuckle. My daughter, the taskmaster. Who would have thought? Life's full of surprises, I said, watching her return to work with new determination. Some of them actually turn out okay. The day continued, filled with small victories and minor disasters, but something had shifted. Mom was trying, really trying, and for the first time in years, I felt like maybe, just maybe, we could build something new from the ashes of our old relationship. But first, we had a brother to deal with. I was reviewing design sketches with Corbin when I heard the shouting from the break room. Mom's voice, then Ronald's, both sharp with anger. You promised me. Mom's words carried clearly. You said it was guaranteed. Nothing in investment is guaranteed, Ronald shot back. You knew the risks. I knew nothing. Something crashed, probably Mom's coffee mug. You told me to sign papers I didn't understand. You said to trust you. I reached the break room door just as Taya and several other employees gathered, drawn by the commotion. Through the glass, I could see Mom standing over Ronald, her finger jabbing at his chest. Mom, I called out, pushing the door open. Everything okay in here? No, she snapped, not taking her eyes off Ronald. Your brother was just explaining how he lost every penny I had. Weren't you, dear? Ronald straightened his tie, trying to regain composure. The market is complicated. Show her, I interrupted. Show her the actual paperwork, Ronald. Show her where her money really went. His face reddened. That's confidential. It's my money. Mom's voice cracked. My life savings, your father's insurance money, everything we had. And now you're working as a glorified seamstress. Ronald sneered. How the mighty have fallen. Better a seamstress with dignity than a thief in a suit, Mom shot back. The break room went silent. Even Ronald looked shocked at her words. You don't mean that, he said quietly. I'm your son. And I'm your sister, I added, stepping closer. Didn't stop you from trying to sabotage my business with that factory deal. That was just business. No, Mom cut in. Business is what Stephanie does. She creates jobs, helps people, builds something real. You just move money around and call it success. While stealing from your own mother, Taya added from the doorway. Ronald's face twisted. You've turned her against me. You did that yourself, I said. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to sell us the factory at a 30% loss, and you're going to return Mom's investment. He laughed, but it sounded hollow. Or what? Or I go to the press with proof that you deliberately misled investors, Mom said, pulling a USB drive from her pocket. I may be new to computers, but Juliet is a very good teacher. We found your emails, Ronald. I couldn't hide my surprise. Mom had been busy. You're bluffing, Ronald said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. Try me. Mom's voice was steel. I've lost everything except my daughter and this job. What else do I have to lose? Ellis has the paperwork ready, I added. Sign today, and this stays private. Refuse, and tomorrow's headline won't be about luxury condos. Ronald looked between us, his confident facade crumbling. You'd really do this? To your own family? Family? Mom laughed bitterly. Family doesn't steal from family. Family doesn't try to destroy each other's dreams. I learned that too late with Stephanie, but I'm learning. Think carefully, brother dear, I said. Your reputation or your pride, which matters more? He reached for the paperwork Ellis had appeared with, hands shaking slightly. This isn't over. Actually, it is. Mom watched him sign. I'm done letting you control my life. I'm done with a lot of things. After Ronald stormed out, Mom collapsed into a chair. Did I just do that? You did. I sat beside her. Where did you get those emails? Juliet showed me how to access my old account. The ones Ronald made me use for the investment. He wasn't as careful as he thought. She smiled weakly. Turns out you can teach an old dog new tricks. Speaking of tricks, Taya leaned in. Wait until you see what we found about the factory's historical status. The Preservation Board is very interested. Later, I said, noting Mom's exhausted expression. Why don't you take the rest of the day off, Mom? You've earned it. No. She stood up, straightening her company badge. Corbin needs those quality control reports, and I haven't finished logging the new shipment. Mom, Stephanie. She touched my arm. For the first time in my life, I'm doing something that matters. Please don't take that away from me. I watched her walk back to her workstation, head held high despite everything. Employees nodded respectfully as she passed, no longer seeing her as just the boss's mother, but as someone who'd stood her ground. Well, Taya said, that was unexpected. Everything about this is unexpected. I looked at the signed papers in my hand, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Through the office windows, I could see the factory in the distance. Soon it would be ours, transformed from a symbol of greed into something hopeful. Kind of like what was happening with Mom, I realized. Sometimes the things we think are broken just need a chance to be rebuilt. The company gala transformed our warehouse into something magical. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, and sustainable fashion displays showcased our journey from startup to success. Local artists, many from the Marshall Street neighborhood, had their work featured alongside our designs. I can't believe you did all this, Mom said, adjusting a rack of dresses. She'd insisted on helping with the setup, despite wearing an evening gown. The community involvement, the artist partnerships. Wait until you see what's next. I nodded toward the podium where Taya was testing the microphone. We're announcing the factory renovation plans tonight. Stephanie? Corbin rushed over, looking panicked. The caterers are short staffed, the photographer's running late, and there's a problem with the. I'll handle the caterers, Mom interrupted. I've managed enough charity galas to know how to run a kitchen. You handle the photographer, Corbin. Stephanie needs to greet the guests. I watched her stride toward the catering area, already calling out instructions with the same authority she'd once used to organize country club events. But this time, her power was being used for something meaningful. The warehouse doors opened, and guests began flowing in. Local business owners, fashion industry representatives, community leaders, and employees mixed and mingled. The energy was electric. Quite a turnout. Ellis appeared at my elbow. And wait until they hear about the training program we're launching at the factory. Is everything ready for the announcement? All set, though you might want to know. He hesitated. Ronald just arrived. I spun around. Sure enough, my brother stood in the entrance, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. But he wasn't alone. Francisco? I breathed. They weren't on the guest list, Taya said, appearing beside me. Want me to have security remove them? Before I could answer, Mom approached them. I moved closer, ready to intervene. What are you doing here? Mom's voice was low but firm. It's a public event, Ronald said, and we have a proposition. No. Mom's response was immediate. You've done enough damage. Clara, please. Francisco stepped forward. Just hear us out. We've been talking and we realize we were wrong about Stephanie's vision. Wrong? I couldn't help interjecting. You actively tried to destroy it. And now we want to help, Ronald said. The factory project? We have connections, investors who'd be interested in. Stop! I held up my hand. Look around, Ronald. See all these people? They're here because we built something real, something that helps their community. We did it without your connections, without your investors, and definitely without your approval. But the lady said stop. A new voice joined in. Juliet stood there, tablet in hand. Sorry to interrupt, but we're ready for the announcement, Stephanie. Mom turned to Ronald and Francisco. You can stay for the announcement. After that, I suggest you leave. This is Stephanie's night, and I won't let you ruin it. Their jaws dropped at Mom's words. I couldn't blame them. This wasn't the Clara Horton they knew. On stage, I looked out at the crowd, employees who'd become family, community members who'd trusted our vision, and there, in the front row, my mother, standing tall, proud, and finally on my side. 5 years ago, I started this company with a dream of ethical fashion. Today, we're announcing the next chapter. I gestured to the architectural renderings being unveiled. The Marshall Street factory will become not just a production facility, but a training center, offering paid apprenticeships to local residents. Every person who completes the program will be guaranteed a job. The crowd erupted in applause. Through the noise, I saw Ronald and Francisco slip out the back door. But none of this would be possible, I continued, without the people who believed in us, including someone who taught me my most valuable lesson, though not in the way she intended. I looked at Mom. She taught me that true success isn't about power or control. It's about lifting others up while staying true to yourself. Mom's eyes filled with tears as the crowd applauded again. Later, as guests mingled and celebrated, she found me by the displays. I was so wrong, she said softly, about everything. I wanted to control your life because I thought I knew best, but look at what you've created by following your own path. We're not done creating, I replied. The factory project needs someone to manage community relations, someone who knows how to organize people, handle difficult personalities, run events. She stared at me. Are you offering? If you're interested. You've proven yourself these past weeks. The job is yours if you want it. Mom straightened her shoulders, and for the first time, I saw not my former oppressor, but a woman ready to begin again. When do I start? The morning after the gala, I found Mom already at her desk, surrounded by community outreach proposals. She'd been there since dawn, according to the security guard. You don't have to prove anything, I said, setting a coffee beside her. I have everything to prove. She looked up, dark circles under her eyes. Especially after what I found last night. She pushed a folder across the desk. Inside were printouts of emails between Ronald and Francisco, dating back months before my divorce. Where did you get these? My hands shook as I read. Juliet helped me access Ronald's old backup drive. He never was good with technology. Mom's voice was tight. They planned it all, Stephanie. Francisco agreeing to our divorce, Ronald's investment scheme, even the factory purchase. It was all meant to force you back into their version of your proper place. The office door burst open. Ronald stormed in, Francisco right behind him. You had no right to access those files. Ronald's face was red with rage. Like you had no right to steal my money? Mom stood, her voice steady. To manipulate your sister's life? We were trying to help, Francisco protested. Stephanie was throwing away everything. I was building everything. I slammed the folder down. While you were plotting to break me, I was creating jobs, changing lives. The only thing I threw away was your control over me. It wasn't like that, Ronald started. Really? I pulled out an email. What's this then? Once she loses the business, she'll have no choice but to return to Francisco. Clara will see I was right about everything. Your words, Ronald. To Francisco, 3 months before you took Mom's money. Francisco at least had the decency to look ashamed. Ronald just straightened his tie. Business is business, he said coldly. Family is family. You chose business. No. Mom's voice cut through the tension. She chose herself, and I choose her. Mom, Ronald stepped toward her. Don't. She held up her hand. I've read everything, Ronald. Every email, every plan. You didn't just steal my money. You tried to destroy your sister's dreams because they didn't fit your narrow view of what a woman should be. I was protecting the family name. By committing fraud, I pulled out more documents. Ellis found everything, the fake investment papers, the shell companies, all of it. One phone call to the SEC and your career is over. You wouldn't dare. But Ronald's voice wavered. Try me. I met his gaze. Or you can sign these. I laid out the papers Ellis had prepared. Full restitution of Mom's money, complete transfer of the factory property, and a binding agreement to stay away from our business. This is blackmail, he sputtered. This is justice, Mom corrected. Sign them, Ronald. It's over. Francisco stepped forward. Stephanie, please, we can work something out. Like you worked out how to manipulate my divorce? I turned to him. Did you ever actually love me, or was I just a project to be managed? His silence was answer enough. Sign the papers, I repeated. Both of you. Francisco, you'll sign away any claim to company interests you might have through our previous marriage. Ronald, you'll make this right. And if we don't, Ronald challenged. Mom picked up her phone. Then I called the reporter who covered the factory story. I'm sure she'd love to hear about investment fraud and family betrayal. Your choice. They signed. As security escorted them out, Ronald turned back one last time. You've changed, he said to Mom. No, she smiled sadly. I've just finally become who I should have been all along. A mother who supports her daughter instead of trying to control her. After they left, Mom sank into her chair. I should have seen it sooner. All those years, I thought I was protecting you by pushing you toward their version of success. But now you're helping me achieve my version. I perched on her desk. The factory renovation starts next week. The community is counting on us. Us? She looked up, hope in her eyes. Us. I nodded at the proposals she'd been working on. These are good, by the way, especially the apprenticeship program for single mothers. I thought about what I would have needed if I'd been brave enough to choose my own path at your age. She straightened the papers. So, what's our next move? First, you're going to get some sleep. Then we're going to build something amazing. Together? Together. I helped her gather her things. And Mom, thank you for choosing me this time. She hugged me, really hugged me, for the first time in years. I'll choose you every time from now on. I promise. As we walked out, the morning sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the future we were finally ready to build. Not as mother and daughter bound by obligation, but as women united by purpose and, at last, by love. The ribbon-cutting ceremony at the Marshall Street factory drew a bigger crowd than we'd expected. Local families filled the courtyard, many wearing clothes from our new community collection, pieces they'd helped design and create during the training program. Ready? Mom appeared beside me, clipboard in hand. She'd organized everything perfectly, as usual, but now her perfectionism served a greater purpose. Almost. I adjusted the microphone stand. Where's Taya with the apprenticeship announcements? Here. Taya rushed over, waving a folder. Sorry, had to make some last-minute changes. 3 more applicants qualified yesterday. Mom beamed. That makes 25 in our first class. Full scholarships, paid training, and guaranteed jobs. Plus childcare, Corbin added, joining us. The daycare center's already full. I looked around at what we'd built. The old factory had been transformed, its brick walls now housing state-of-the-art production facilities, classrooms, and community spaces. Solar panels glinted on the roof, and the courtyard garden bloomed with local plants. Stephanie, Julie called from the crowd, everyone's ready. Taking the microphone, I faced our community. Employees, old and new, stood alongside local residents and business owners. Even Francisco's mother was there, having chosen to support our vision after her son's betrayal came to light. A year ago, this building was going to become another symbol of displacement, I began. Today, it's a symbol of what's possible when we choose community over profit, growth over greed, and truth over appearances. Mom stepped forward, taking the microphone. My daughter taught me those lessons. I spent years trying to force her into a mold that never fit. But she showed me that real success isn't about maintaining appearances or following someone else's rules. It's about creating something meaningful. And you succeeded, called out Juliet from the crowd. The waiting list for the training program is already 3 months long. Laughter rippled through the audience. I saw Taya wiping away tears as she distributed the apprenticeship acceptance letters. The first piece I ever designed, I continued, was a simple dress made from recycled fabric. My mother called it a hobby. My brother called it a waste of time. My ex-husband called it a phase. But some of you here today saw something different. You saw potential. We saw hope, said Maria, one of our first apprentices, now a lead trainer. You gave us a chance when nobody else would. Mom touched my arm. The reporters are here. I nodded, spotting the news crews setting up. The same reporter who'd covered the factory controversy now stood ready with her microphone. But this time, we had a different story to tell. Today isn't just about opening a building, I said. It's about opening doors. Every person who walks through these doors will have the chance to rewrite their story, just like I rewrote mine, just like my mother rewrote hers. Speaking of rewriting stories, Mom added, the Foundation's first grant applications are ready for review. 10 small business loans for local entrepreneurs, focusing on sustainable practices and community impact. This was news to me. Mom, she smiled, consider it my way of paying forward what you taught me. I took what Ronald stole and turned it into something better. The Clara Horton Foundation will ensure that other dreamers get their chance. The crowd erupted in applause. As Mom cut the ribbon, I saw tears in her eyes. Not the carefully controlled emotions of her society days, but real, raw joy. Inside, apprentices proudly showed off their workstations to visitors. The production floor hummed with energy as demonstrations began. In the community room, local artists displayed their work alongside our designs. Quite a change from the guest room workshop, Taya said, linking her arm through mine. Quite a change from everything. I watched Mom leading a tour group, explaining our zero waste policies with genuine enthusiasm. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting better. Speaking of better, Mom called out, these lovely people want to know about our expansion plans. Go, Taya nudged me. Be the boss lady. I'll make sure everyone gets their acceptance letters. Walking toward Mom and the tour group, I felt the weight of the journey that had brought us here. The pain of rejection, the sting of betrayal, the sweet satisfaction of success. All of it had led to this moment. The future of fashion isn't just about what we wear, I told the group. It's about who we become. Every piece we create here tells a story of transformation, of second chances, of choosing to build rather than break. Mom squeezed my hand as we continued the tour. No words were needed. We'd finally found our way, not to revenge, but to redemption, and that was better than any victory I could have planned.